As believers, we're always in this in-between place. We live in a world we're not from, but we still have to walk in it every day. We go about our lives living business as usual, yet we know we're brought into a higher calling. We live surrounded by people living a lifestyle that we're expected to live, but we know we shouldn't. It's like balancing the natural world around us but being connected to something far beyond our understanding. Friends saying to live like this, family saying to live like that, our pastor saying one thing and somebody else saying something different. It's hard to even really know what's what sometimes. Yet even though we aren't from here and we're supposed to be reflecting Jesus, we're in this place of still wanting to be influenced by the world around us, especially when we're younger. No one wants to feel like an outcast. That's not something people enjoy. No one wants to be the odd one out or the one that people look at as the weird one. We all want companionship. We all want to feel included. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually a God-given desire to be a part of something bigger than just ourselves. Unfortunately, to do that, we feel this need to kind of hide and not make any waves, not to go against the grain. We end up feeling like the only way we can be accepted is to conform to the world around us and look like everyone else, talk like everyone else, do what everyone else does. Especially with today's social climate, it's all about identifying with a certain culture, circle of beliefs. Everyone has a cause, everyone has a belief system, and honestly, in 2020, it's a world where if you disagree with that specific belief system, you're instantly like the enemy, and you hate that person, and you're instantly pushed out of the circle, and you lose your seat in the big game of social musical chairs. There's this obvious, enormous pressure to fit in all the time. Human beings are literally the best chameleons on the planet. We can totally change our attitude and our personality based on who we're around and what our environment is. We don't want to cause any conflict. We don't want any attention. We don't want to offend anybody. So we walk on eggshells 24/7, hoping that, everything just kind of goes under the radar. But honestly, looking at Jesus and how he lived and how his followers lived, it starts to be very clear that to follow Jesus, you kind of have no choice but to go against the grain. When you read the Bible, you realize that life as a believer instantly looks different than, the popular culture that surrounds it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, everything he did was in love and compassion and an understanding, but still, he never compromised who he was, who his father was, or why he was there. Like I've said before, this is difficult because the culture we live in now changes every 5 minutes, but the culture that Jesus walked in never changes and stays the same. Trying to live like Jesus in a world that switches up every 2 weeks is really hard. You kind of start to have to ask yourself, how do we reconcile these things? Living in a lifestyle that honors and shows Jesus while still being surrounded with 1,000 voices that say to do the opposite. Not wanting to be an outcast, but living a life that by nature goes against the grain of popular culture. Not wanting any attention on us, but being led into a calling that puts us, a lot of times at the forefront of life. Talking to people we don't know, believing things that many would say is opposite to what they believe. Living this against the current life, but doing it all in humility, love, honor, and compassion. How do we live a life without compromise when we live in the middle of a culture built around compromise? Are we willing to? Even if it costs us everything?